Welcome to Authentic with Brazil 2-1. I'm your host, Brazil 2-1. And on today's episode, we're going to do something I haven't done since the DNC calendar thing, a politics episode, but some programming notes. Sunday, as you all know, Sunday morning, we do Linus, right? Which will be Linus episode 3. And at night, Lanterns will be dropping. I have seen the first 4 episodes of Lanterns. This show is better than Watchmen, the HBO show. That is all I will say. I have watched the first 4, or we'll do the weekly pod for, so just so and so. I won't do anything ahead or whatever. I will say, so good that we have 2 fucking phenomenal shows on Sunday television. But let's go to the politics about it because it's been quite interesting. We've had the results of the Wisconsin primary, the Michigan primary, the Minnesota primary. Polling has been wrong in every direction from left to right. And we also have the Trump decoy plane story, which, by the way, we're going to start with that because I think that story is absolutely hilarious. So, Israeli intelligence told Marco Rubio and Donald Trump that the Iranians were planning to use Turkish Iranians or something to that extent, and they were going to somehow shoot down Air Force One. Now, the United States government, people like real national security people, said the threat was actually plausible, right? Which led into what they did basically in both the movie SWAT and The Dark Knight Rises, where Trump boards Air Force One, leaves the catering, like the catering cart into a truck, into a decoy plane. And not only that, but the only people who knew on the real plane, the plane that allegedly was going to get shot down, were like Marco Rubio. Okay. Like, it is hilarious that who was on the decoy plane because the decoy plane goes away. I mean, the plane Trump was on goes away. Nobody knows. But who's on, like, the plane that was gonna get blown up? Like, Caitlin Collins and, like, all these fucking people. And all I could think about was if you've seen The Dark Knight Rises, with the Bane scene, how they hijack the plane and they're like, "They're expecting to see one of us." Right? Is all I could do is picture Trump as Bane telling Marco Rubio, right? Like, and Marco Rubio just accepting, like, "Okay." Right? Accepting that the plane is gonna get blown up, which is hilarious. And by the way, the fact that, like, no one knew until, like, fucking 2 days ago about this whole decoy plane story is hilarious. Because if you're, like, one of because it's just also, if you saw House of the Dragon, there's the thing where Aegon goes, "I'm alive." So, like, let's say we're in this world where, like, Air Force One got shot down, right? And nobody except Trump and some people knew that he was on this other plane, right? And he comes out, "I'm alive," like, "Fuck me, bitch," but then you have, like, Caitlin Collins and all them dead. Like, just imagine, like, "Oh, everyone I hate died on that plane." And then you gotta think about, like, the people he really cared about were on the plane with him, like that girl that prints all his tweets or whatever. It's quite fascinating because you get to see, like, who he really cares about and who's like, "You can die," because that is just absolutely hilarious. Because you gotta, like, think, like, it's just that is just funny. Okay, so let's get into, like, the Wisconsin, Michigan, and polling, right? On how, like, polling was bad in all these races, and it wasn't just, like, in these Democrat races. Because I wanna go through everything first. So, let's go through because there's a lot of bad polling out there that we have to, like, just take, and I think, by the way, we're gonna get into, like, Nate Silver's model because Nate Silver doesn't wanna use that polling firm that constantly had, Saeed up by 15, right, which I believe is fucking Adam Carlson and You Mitch Voters fucking polling firm, which is, like, woke polls, where they just overflood the zone with these insanely, like, bad polls that overpoll progressives. Because, like, here's what happened, right? Minnesota. We'll go through Minnesota first because Minnesota also has a primary. Polling averages, somehow these polls late in the last 2 weeks started having Andrew Craig up, right? So the polling average ended up being Flanagan by 2. Flanagan won by 20. Okay. Then we're going to go to the Minnesota GOP governor primary. Every poll, the average was Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy. Average was 8, right? That was the average. The actual result was Demoot won by 6. Okay. Next, Wisconsin, which is here we go. Polling average had, Tiffany, the governor, by 60, she won by 91, okay? Now, this is where we come from, the crazy lady. We're gonna get into the 'cause the fucking this the fuck that Wisconsin avoided a situation where that lady would have lost in a landslide, similar to what's gonna happen in Michigan, because we're gonna have to be the Democrats need to be very realistic about certain situations, because you guys think America is better than what it is, and you guys are being very stupid about it. But the polls had Hong up by 24, Crowley won by 0.8%. Michigan, as we saw, all the polls had Saeed up by 14, 15, 13, whatever. He won by 1. Okay, and there's a lot to, like, say here in regards to this, and we're gonna get into Michigan later, right? But that PPP polling firm needs to be discredited across the board because they kept flooding it with, situations, and we're gonna get into the Fox News polling because ironically, the Fox News poll, the last poll they did 2 polls before the primary, and they've done 1 poll now post-primary, right? They did the Saeed, Stevens primary, right? And it had, Saeed up by 4, right? Which everyone thought, "There's no way it's right." So technically, the Fox News poll was the most correct. And people keep conflating Fox News, the television network, with Fox News' polling analytics thing. They are separate entities. Fox News is actually arguably the 3rd best, pollster well, actually made because Alice Intel shit the bed on New Jersey and Virginia, but they kinda were right on the Zoran Cuomo thing in the general versus the primary, where it was much closer than people expected. And then there's, Quantum Insights, which got the it actually did, it got the which was the day? They did one of these. They did one of these. They got most of the New York primaries correct, like in a weird, scary way. So right now, it seems to be in terms of like the polls you should trust. By the way, whether you like it or not, it is Fox News. It is Quantum Insights. Atlas Intel hasn't really done any polling in a while because they want to like retool everything after like dropping the ball so badly. But it is Fox News, Quantum Insights, and then I guess 3 is the argument, which is that annoying fucking dweeb kid, like, Lacacious thing who ran Split Ticket or runs Split Ticket or whatever. We're gonna get to Nate Silver's thing because Nate Silver's model seems to be the most trusted model right now because Nate Silver refuses to implement Kalshi and Polymarket into its forecast in the way all these other places have. And we saw the disaster that Polymarket and Kalshi was over these fucking primaries, right? That is a disaster. So let's go to Wisconsin first with the crazy woke lady, right? Who was a fucking clown of a candidate, and it says a lot, right? That because had she won, boy, the Puck News had got the opposition file that the GOP planned to release immediately after had Hong won. Boy, she was a true believer in the woke nonsense, and it goes beyond by saying like, "Hi, my pronouns are her." And the land acknowledgement, and that I hate my half white son, and I hate Thanksgiving, and I hate all holidays, and all of it, and, you know, get rid of crime and all of it, and the fact she's bad on television, and all the other shit, okay? That people could see that woman would have lost in a landslide because she was the personification of what people thought 2020 was, like, you better post a black square, okay, and wear whatever pin for the activist cause of the week, right? That type of person. Thankfully, she lost. Thankfully, Tom Evers put the stamp on, and hopefully, by the way, in 2028 for the Wisconsin Senate thing, everyone does not try to run against Ben Wickler, right? Okay, I assume Francesca Hong will try to run for the Senate again, and the difference is Ben Wickler is a good candidate, and I do not think Mandela Barnes or Sarah Jacobs or any of these people that ran for governor this time around will run for Senate because Ben Wickler should be in the same way we view Mary Patola or Roy Cooper or Sherrod Brown, right? Or Dan Osborne. These are he should be just have the nominee and just straight up campaign against Ron Johnson. 'Cause Ben Wickler should be the next senator, and he should be able to beat Ron Johnson because he is the only candidate, by the way, who could probably beat Ron Johnson in what is going to be a presidential general election, not a midterm general election. Okay, that fucking crazy lady can't win anything. So let's go to Michigan, right? And this is it because I was a Mallory person, right? And look, it's clear based off, like, the numbers came out, if Haley Stevens had dropped out, Mallory Stevens would have most likely beat Abdul Saeed, right? Because the poll was it was 1%, right? And and Mallory's voters basically split between the 2, it's very likely that 90% of Haley Stevens voters would have went to Mallory McMorrow, right? It's, like, very clear, and it's also very clear that if Haley Stevens had been attractive, right, just as attractive of like, just it's just you can be mad and say this is misogynistic, but it is true because had she been attractive and been able to talk somewhat normal and going on places, once again, she ran a Kamala Harris style campaign, right? She probably would have won, right? Just straight up, if Haley Stevens had been half as attractive as Mallory McMorrow, and if Mallory McMorrow didn't run a cringe Liz Smith style campaign, which is the other fucking problem, by the way, which we've had. Liz Smith should not be allowed to run any fucking Senate campaign. It is fun to see. Mallory the McMorrow campaign crashed and burned, right? The Angie Craig, Minnesota Senate campaign, which she also ran, crashed and burned. It was funny to see how cringe both campaigns were in different ways. Obviously, she thinks Pete Buttigieg can win, a gay man. A gay man can't be president, but we're gonna see that crash and burn because Liz Smith does not understand, like, how to win a statewide race at all in this new environment. She still runs it as if it's 2014, right? It's just fact. I'm sorry if the fight agency candidates, the ones run by the Katzes, Rebecca and Morris Katz, they are just better talkers, right? And this is true. Like, had those people decide to back Mallory instead of Abdul, Mallory probably wins, which we're then going to get into the Fox News polls in regards to the general. So these are what is it called? Where the fuck is it? I have the polling here. Okay, here we go. Here is how this is what Fox News has for they polled every Senate um election coming November, right? They have Ossoff winning with 56%. They have Roy Cooper winning with 53%. They have Sherrod Brown winning with 53%. They have the wheelchair guy in Iowa, Turk, winning by 50%. They have Talarico winning with 51%. They have Troy Jackson winning in Maine by 2. They have Mike Rogers in Michigan winning by 5. Okay. So, ironically enough, the people on Threads are like, well, only the Democrat victories are real news. The Michigan one is obviously fake news. Fox News is fake news and blah, blah, blah. Yet, I want to get into the other thing that was funny within the Michigan primary is that there's a primary, right, where a white guy, who very old white guy who didn't know how to work the FCC system, just kept like handwriting the letters to the FCC. Like, I don't know how to file this electronically. It's too confusing. I am dropping out of my campaign. Okay. Or I'm suspending my campaign. Right. There was a Muslim. Well, not Muslim. He has an Arab Muslim name. Right. What the fuck is this? What is his name? God. What the fuck is this dude's name? It is. Where is this? Blah, 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 blah. Shoosh. Oh, yeah, God, Amir Hassan. Oh, yeah, Amir Hassan, okay, who is backed by Trump, backed by the NRCC, backed by the NSCC, right? All the GOP wants him to win, right? He lost to a guy who dropped out 2 months ago by 40 points, okay? And that primary in Michigan proved the point because what was interesting is that in Ohio, right? You would assume Vivek running in governor is polling similar to the Senate Republican candidate, right? Vivek has been constantly underpolling his Republican counterpart by 5 points in Ohio, right? We're seeing, by the way, we've had 2 polls now in the general election for Michigan, the Fox News one and I believe an Emerson one. The governor in the Michigan race is winning by 16. Okay. And also have I believe the Emerson poll had Mike Rogers winning by 3, right? I think people need to be this is here's the thing, because Abdul's not gonna win Michigan. I don't think he is, and I think it's gonna be a massive blow, by the way, to the Bernie wing of the party, because this is what's gonna happen. There's enough swing white voters, by the way, because this is what people need to realize for presidential election. Only 7 states matter, right? It's not about what fucking people in Brooklyn want. It's not about what people fucking Silver Lake want, right? They're gonna see the name, right? Because here's the thing. If Abdul was a white guy named Adam something or Abraham something, he's probably winning by 3. Same policies and all that. But because his name is Abdul Alil Saeed, there is enough swing white voters who are not going to vote for a Muslim candidate. I just think straight up, there's enough swing white voters in these swing states that will never vote for a Muslim. They will never vote for an Indian. They will never vote for a Hindu. We're seeing this in Vivek in Ohio, who is going to lose to Amy Acton. It's not because Amy Acton is some fucking amazing candidate, by the way. It is just because they're like, no, I am not voting for a Hindu Indian for a governor in Ohio, right? That is the bridge too far. That Michigan primary, and by the way, in that primary, I was like, "Oh, this has to be like a D plus 10 district, so why does it" No, it is one of these districts that were Trump won, but the Democrat won by 1, right? So this is like a district that Republicans could win. Do you understand that? And this is very obvious, which I by the way, when Saeed loses in November, because I don't think he's gonna win. I do think the Fox News situation is where you probably get, like, Patola wins, Tallarico barely probably pulls it off. I don't think they ever seat him, though. You end up Brown probably wins, etcetera, on how this goes. But we're gonna learn very quickly, right? Because just how we all knew in 2020 a woman can't win, here's the thing, a black woman ain't be in 2028, a black woman ain't winning the presidency. Sorry, Kamala. A single Latina woman with no children is not winning the presidency. Sorry, AOC. A gay man is not winning the presidency. Sorry, Pete Buttigieg. An Indian man is not winning the presidency. Sorry, Ro Khanna, right? Here's the thing. A straight, white, black, or Hispanic male can win, okay? Straight up. It doesn't matter who it is. Ossoff, Shapiro. I don't think Newsom can win, but you understand what I mean? Westmore, Warnock. Um, I don't know. Is there any like good Hispanic candidate? Don't say fucking Ruben Galeo, because no. But do you understand the situation here? They're gonna learn real quickly because they're gonna see that, and you're gonna have to realize, yeah, there is enough swing white voters who are never going to vote for certain things, and you just have to accept that. That is the electorate you have to accept to win a presidential election. Because here's the funny thing, right? Kamala Harris said, "Yeah, I couldn't pick Pete Buttigieg to be my vice president because the country would never accept a black woman and a gay man on a ticket together because that is too fucking diversity," right? She said that. Michelle Obama's like, "We're probably at least 2 to 3 presidential cycles away from the first woman president being one," right? That's just the fact, okay? Kamala, AOC, some unknown hot white moderate chick, none of them can win, okay, in 2028. That's just the fact of the matter is because the Democratic Party has become so anti-male, a woman candidate amplifies those flaws. Okay? It's very true. Okay? I think there was a funny story in New York Times today about, Zoran's bro culture in City Hall, and it is funny because I had the tweet went viral. I was like, "What's funny is when you actually have, like, real straight males work for government instead of, like, the woke vegan male who have pronouns in their bio on Instagram and wear NPR tote bags and do a gluten allergy." There's a difference in, like, what, real straight versus, acceptable straight to work in politics. You understand that? These are all the little things that matter, and a lot of woke staffers refuse to admit that. But Saeed's gonna lose. Okay. But it's also funny because Democrats are accepting the whole frame, yeah, swing by voters won't vote for Vivek because he's Indian slash Hindu, but they refuse to accept the same for Saeed. Right? Saeed's gonna lose. Maybe the governor candidate is able to drag him across the finish line. Maybe. This seems to be a situation playing out in Georgia where Ossoff is gonna win probably by 15, and he's gonna be able to drag Keisha Lance Bottom over the thing, and thank God it's Keisha Lance Bottom, not Stacey Abrams, because Stacey Abrams is a fucking idiot. But you understand that? Also, Keisha Lance Bottom probably should have been, um, Biden's VP. Much better talker than Kamala Harris, right? Because 'Cause we're still seeing Kamala Harris, too scared to go on Joe Rogan. AOC, too scared to go on Joe Rogan. And by the way, I don't give a shit about the Hassan Piker thing. I think he's a fucking idiot. Okay? Hassan Piker is not the Joe Rogan of the left. Hassan Piker is the Charlie Kirk of the left. Okay? I don't understand. Like the similarities are there. Okay, the difference is though, like Charlie Kirk, realistically, probably if he was still alive, was gonna like eventually either become like the governor of Arizona or like eventually like president of the United States. I like because we're gonna swing back. Like this idea that you think you're gonna have Democrat presidents forever is stupid, or Republican presidents forever is also stupid. But the first woman president will be a hot white Republican woman who is strong, and people always view her primary win as legitimate because for all the processes is, you can say the 2016 GOP primary, you saw the GOP try to rig it against Trump, and Trump still won, right? And you're already seeing the Democratic primary process play out in '28. They're trying to rig it for either Gavin or Kamala by, like, the calendar. So, this is why people will never accept, like, "Oh, Democratic women earned a nomination." Like, no. You get it? Like, this is why the first woman president will be, like, a hot Republican woman. I don't think either party picks a woman in '28, but, like, let's live in the real world here and not a pretend world. Okay, so look, Ossoff gets the win, Roy Cooper gets the win, maybe Dan Osborne pulls it off. Sherrod Brown maybe wins, but he probably loses in the '28 in the general election, like, in that, because, Brown is running for the other seat, which is then up for reelection again in '28, and I doubt he can carry Ohio in a general election presidential general election environment. But look, Turk will maybe win. If Tallarico wins, if Troy Jackson wins, if Patola wins, you get it. Maybe the fucking independent in Montana wins. Who knows? You get it? But look, Saeed loses is gonna prove a lot of point, like, yo, for these swing state, because Francesca Hong would have lost too. You gotta pick a sit like, you can't do this, okay? The general electorate is not the same as a primary electorate, okay? And there's enough swing white voters who ain't gonna fucking choose this. But I don't know what the rules on Michigan if to drop out. Like, like we did the Plattner swap for Troy Jackson? Like, maybe you know, Abdul gets enough numbers, and he's like, "Can I drop out?" And Gretchen Whitmore gets to be the candidate instead, because, by the way, Gretchen Whitmore, you're never gonna be fucking president either. So, we could have just avoided this entire situation had Gretchen Whitmore decided, "I wanna be the senator," right? Because I think Whitmer would have pulled it off against, Said in the primary, right? Because it would have been coalesced from the beginning. Because Mallory and Stevens wouldn't have run against Gretchen Whitmer. Get it? But that's how we go. But yeah, Lanterns, Sunday, 9 PM. Linus, also Sunday, 5 AM.